This is BelGeode, and we are here. Oh boy, it feels like a weight has been lifted off of my shoulders. Folks, you have no idea just how long I have waited to be able to finally show you this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is the one that we've been talking about all year. This is the one where they invited us out to Seattle last year to check it out, and this is a preview of what is to come officially on August the 18th, 2020. So finally, as of July 30th, 2020, the embargo has been lifted on those of us who went to Seattle as well as select media, so we can now freely talk to you about Microsoft Flight Simulator. Please bear in mind, if you are in the closed beta, but you are not part of the group that was given special authorization to speak about it, you are still under NDA. Do not say anything about it. All right, but you may notice that there's an interesting little screen in front of you here. This is the main screen. When you first log into Microsoft Flight Simulator, this is what you see as your main screen. And I know probably some of you are like, oh, it looks gamey, it looks arcadey. Listen to me here. It's a UI, a user interface. It's supposed to look pretty. But look at the fact that they've integrated all of this into one seamless experience here. This is massively better than anything that we had with FS9, FSX, hell, even P3D, or X-Plane for that matter. And you guys know how much I love X-Plane. This blows the pants off of everything, and everything is there right where you need it. So you've got your welcome screen, you've got your profile information, the marketplace that they've spoken about, all your options where you can set everything up to be super realistic, or you can set everything up to be like the alleged GTA that we keep hearing about. You've got your friends and your notifications. You can set up group flights, and then of course there's your account information there. And we've got the world map, flight training activities, landing challenges, and of course news from Microsoft and Asobo. For tonight's flight, however, we are going to concentrate on the world map. So if you go ahead and click this, that will put us right here. And you can see we've got a familiar blue marble floating around in space. Yes, folks, this is Mother Earth. And if we wanted to, we could just kind of spin her around like this. Look at that. Oh, and by the way, for you folks that have been asking if they model the North and the South Poles, this is the North Pole right here. And look at that. There's Antarctica and the South Pole. Oh, I should also mention, do you see these lovely looking clouds here? Folks, this is not placeholder art. This is not just, fancy art assets. This is real. By now you've heard about the partnership with Meteo Blue. What you're looking at here, this is a real weather depiction around the entire planet. That means if there are storms, for example, it looks like there's a low pressure system here in the upper part of the Pacific. All of that stuff is generated in the flight sim. Absolutely incredible. This is the level of detail that we haven't seen before in any flight sim. Yeah, we've had Active Sky and we've had Rex, Skyforce, and so on and so forth, but this literally takes it to the next level. All right, so for tonight's flight, I want to concentrate on two things. First off, I want to take you to some place that's extremely special to me. And if you are a longtime viewer of this channel, you probably already know where I'm going. So we're going to zoom into the world here because we can do that with Mother Earth. And longtime viewers of this channel should remember this island right here. Yep, that is correct. This is the island of Jamaica. Now, some of you are probably wondering, well, why Jamaica? Well, to be honest with you, that's where I was born. And when I was a little kid, my dad learned to fly general aviation. He got his private pilot's license at this airport that we're going to be taking off from called Tinson Pen. Tinson Pen is located in Kingston, the capital city of Jamaica. You can see we've got Norman Manley International Airport just to the southeast there. We're going to try and stay out of their traffic since we'll have AI aircraft and players also activated for our flight here. But yeah, from Tinson we are going to be traveling over the Blue Mountains and we're going to head to the northern shore of Jamaica, a place called Boscobel, which is just to the east of the touristy area of Ocho Rios. Boscobel was chosen because when I was a kid, that was one of the destinations that my dad would fly us to. And it was always a thrilling experience, no matter which way we came in. If we came in from the west, we had to go over the hills and the trees, and then there was a big drop off until the runway, and there was always turbulence. There was always turbulence. If we come in from the other way, which it looks like we're going to, considering the fact that the wind is blowing from 270 at 5 knots, then we get to fly over the water, and it's just a beautiful approach as the trees open up and you see the runway right there. That's what we're going to do tonight. Now, the other thing that I want to point out with this particular episode, and bear in mind, this is going to be like a mini series of preview episodes. And I say it that way because Microsoft and Asobo do want me to make sure that you understand this is a preview video, not a review or anything like that. You can think of it as like a first look. But since the sim is still in beta and there's still a few days left in beta, you must understand that not everything is complete. So anything that you see in this video, just be advised, it might not look the same come August the 18th. With that out of the way, however, now we know where we're going to fly. A little bit later, I'll get into videos that will go over some of the more interesting details on the user interface and how to set things up, but this is not intended to be a tutorial. So all you need to know is I set myself up in a parking spot, and you see just how much we can actually zoom in and pick a parking spot. And once we get our parking spot, we will spawn into the sim in a cold and dark state. So we will have to start up the aircraft, which is fine because I've got a special surprise in store for you. And I really want to get into the cockpit and talk about it before we actually start up and fly out. All right, couple of really quick things that I just want to mention to you here. First and foremost, on the left side of the screen, you'll see our aircraft. Our chariot for the day is the Cessna. I'm not going to go over all of the aircraft that are available. Just know that everybody who's currently in the beta program has access to the basic package, the standard package. That's the $59.99 package. None of us have Premier or Deluxe, even though a lot of us have actually purchased that for when this sim goes live. You'll notice the little categories at the top. When I first saw this in Seattle, we also had categories for fighters, helicopters, and gliders. Obviously, none of those are in the sim just yet, but as everything comes online, those categories will come back. Sergio, gotta love him. He has got the patience of a saint. He knows about the whole helicopter situation. Microsoft told us from the get-go, from when we first met them, that they can't put helicopters in until after release. But trust me, folks, Sergio has been in contact with these folks pretty much every day. When the time is right after launch, Sergio will get them in touch with all the movers and shakers of the helicopter flight sim community to make sure that they do it right. I can give you a guarantee on that. I know Sergio. He'll be able to pull it off. Same thing with fighter jets and so on. We know that people like Dino Cataneo and DC Designs and Airplane Heaven are going to be working on bringing their fighter jets over. In particular, my absolute favorite, the F-14 Tomcat. But with that having been said, we're still going to have to wait a little bit. All right, real quick, each aircraft comes with one livery. However, anybody who purchases Microsoft Flight Simulator will have access to the SDK. That's the software development kit. With the software development kit, you can do things like add or modify airports. You can create whole new aircraft. You can create missions to share with your friends. And you can also do things like create liveries. If you're fully versed with like Photoshop and those kinds of programs, I expect that you'll probably have liveries made within the first week after launch. And if you happen to have any really good looking purple ones, send those my way if you don't mind. Weight and balance, really quick here. You'll notice that the aircraft starts out with 50% fuel. So we can change that here, or if we wanted to, we can wait until we get into the sim and we can ask for the gas man to come fuel us up. We can also change around our payload. pilot, co-pilot, passenger left, passenger right, and cargo. We have weight in the seats for pilot and co-pilot, so those figures will appear when we look in the outside view. Really quick, I want to mention something that may not matter to most of you that are watching this, but it will matter to some of you, so I feel the need to just kind of call it out here. One of the things that used to bother me a lot about flight simming is every time I look at the pilot in the aircraft, he never actually looked like me. And you guys have seen me, or at least most of you have. I don't have light skin. I'm a dark boy. So, one of the things that Microsoft and Asobo have done is they've actually made it to where you can change your pilot and your co pilot model. Let's say that you want your pilot to look like an Asian woman. You can. If you want to make your pilot look like a black gentleman, you can. If you want to be a Caucasian gentleman or a Caucasian lady, you can. They did all of that, and it's the little things like that that may not mean much to a lot of people, but to say a young child in Africa who really is inspired to fly, actually seeing someone in the cockpit that kind of reminds them of them can be a huge emotional and mental boost for them in actually learning the aircraft and feeling like this is something they could do as a career when they grow up. So I had to call attention to that. It's one of those things that completely overlooked by most people, but it's really interesting that they added that. All right, a couple more things here on the airplane section. These are the failures. Of course, we're going to leave our failures off for this time. But make no bones about it, if you set your failures, things can fail, and, well, you better know what you're doing. We'll just leave it at that. Bear in mind that visualized crashes are not modeled. You will not see an explosion of your aircraft if you happen to smack the ground at incredible speed. If you want explosions, you're going to have to go to DCS for that. And then finally, the ATC options. Now, typically what I'll do when I fly is I will set my own call sign. And right now I have 6Y AGB. 6 Yankee is the default for Jamaica, and Alpha Golf Bravo, well, that's my initials. So there you have it. You can also assign yourself a call sign or flight number. If you're heavy, you can put heavy on there, all that good stuff. So we'll go over a lot of that in subsequent videos here. Like I said, the main point is just to give you a general overview. So the last thing we're going to look at here are the flight conditions. And with that, we also have multiplayer. Right now, I've got it set up to all players, so I can literally see anybody who is using this flight simulator at this time. And in addition to which, I've also got it set up for live traffic. No doubt you've heard that there is a partnership that Microsoft and Asobo have with FlightAware. FlightAware is what's generating your live traffic, whether it be commercial or GA. Or you could have generic AI flying around, or you could just have no AI flying around. And honestly, that's usually the option that I choose the most. And then finally, of course, your weather and time. I currently have it set to custom. So we're going to be taking off roughly around 5:55 p.m. in Jamaica on July the 30th, 2020. And we've got scattered clouds pretty much all over the place. We've also got a light breeze coming out of the west, 270 degrees at 5 knots. You can change all of this stuff, or you can opt to leave it as the real weather. And let me tell you something, folks, if you leave it as real weather, it's pretty accurate. I've actually made flights around where I live in real life in Pittsburgh. It's been totally accurate. So yeah, there is that. All right. That is pretty much everything I want to show you on here. So for now, we are going to hop into the cockpit and we'll get started. We'll start the plane up. We'll fly around Kingston, and then we'll head over to Boscobel and come in for a landing. One quick note, part of the reason why I chose these two airports, these are not the 30 or 40 handcrafted airports. These are default airports, and I want you to see what the default airports look like. There is still some room for improvement, so keep that in mind. However, I want you to see what kind of energy is being put into the default airports. And I think you might agree with me that they're on the right path with this. Okay, enough of my yakking. It's time to get into the cockpit and fly around Jamaica. Okay, so we are in the cockpit here in Tinson Pen, and the first thing that you're probably noticing is that my camera is moving around. There is a reason for that. All right, it's time to address the big elephant in the room here. No doubt you've already caught the announcement that trackIR is currently implemented in the existing beta. That's kind of what I'm using. But wait, there's more. You also know that VR is going to be implemented. Now, I'm going to talk about that separately in a moment here, but the main reason why I call attention to that is I want you to understand that I am currently using the Oculus Rift for my track IR. How am I doing this? Well, I've been experimenting. So, what I've actually done is I'm using a free program known as OpenTrack. And through OpenTrack, I'm also using Steam's virtual desktop to create what is essentially a wraparound IMAX screen. And I'm looking at that in VR right now. OpenTrack is actually doing the track IR portion of it. It's hooked up to my Oculus Rift, so every time I move my head, it's translating that into track IR movements. And then since I've got this wraparound screen around me here, well, everywhere I look, I'm looking at the aircraft. So even though it is not a true 3D VR, it's kind of like the poor man's VR in a way, and it should help considerably as far as judging your position, checking to see where the runway is in relation to you, and of course, helping you around with the turns and so on. Now, let's get back to VR. Okay, so some interesting information came out regarding VR, and I can finally speak to you about what I've talked to the developers about as well. So, as you know, they announced that the Reverb G2, the HP Reverb G2 is going to be supported with the very first patch that comes out after launch. Now, there's a caveat with that. The Reverb G2 is a brand new VR headset. In fact, I don't even think it's out yet, although pre orders I hear are available right now. There's been a little bit of misinformation because people are assuming that is the only headset that you'll be able to use. The HP Reverb uses WMR. Now, what WMR is Windows Mixed Reality. A lot of people are asking, well, why didn't they just start with Oculus or why didn't they just start with HTC? Think about the name that I just quoted here Windows Mixed Reality. It's their product, and it is used in things like the original HP Reverb. It's used in the new HP Reverb G2, and it's also even used in the Samsung Odyssey. So, what that means realistically for those of you who have any of those headsets is when the first VR patch drops, all of you will have native VR with this sim, since that will be the first one it's implemented. It was just easier for Microsoft to do that since they already own the code for Windows Mixed Reality. But also, you need to remember that Microsoft announced that this thing is coming to Steam. In fact, if you go to Steam right now, you can actually pre order Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, what that tells me, and this is an educated guess here that was kind of sort of confirmed by the developers without them actually breaking any confidentiality. Um, Steam VR works with all the other headsets. So if Microsoft were smart, and I'm really throwing this out here, Microsoft would make sure that there is implementation with Steam VR. And that will allow people like myself with the Oculus Rift S to utilize the native VR capabilities of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, don't get me wrong, I have no idea when any of this is coming. I've been told it will be soon after the Reverb patch goes in, but soon could be anything. Soon could be a couple of days, soon could be a couple of months. I really don't know. I wasn't given an actual time frame. But suffice to say, I trust Microsoft to do the right thing when it comes to ensuring that all of their VR users will be able to support this. And as many of you know, I helped to run the VR Aviators group on Facebook, and we have been very loud when it comes to making sure that Microsoft does not forget about us. Our work is not yet done. So until everybody who has VR can actually use this thing in VR instead of using this little ghetto VR, as I call it here, then our work is not yet complete. But I can tell you this, even though I am using this little IMAX type of setup here in my Oculus Rift, I'm actually getting really good frames and really good performance, and it's actually doing what I want it to do. Plus, I know exactly where my mouse is on my desktop here, my real life desktop, so I can actually interact here. I don't have to use my touch controllers or anything. I can just, take care of things as I need to. Speaking of which, we're going to do that right now. So let's get our battery on and we'll get our breakers up. You will notice that I have the tooltips on. I have not turned those off. They're kind of like a helper, if you will, for you who are watching this video because you can see exactly what it is I'm hitting. You cannot see my actual mouse cursor, so that's how you'll know what I'm doing right now. All right, speaking of which, let's get our mixture in. We'll make sure our fuel tanks are set to both, and we're going to turn on the fuel pump really quick and then just pump the throttle a little. We'll get some fuel flowing. Okay, pretty good. We'll turn off our fuel pump and we'll close our mixture. Okay, so we're pretty much ready for an engine start here. So I'm going to get our magnetos on, set to both, and we'll get ready to do a start. Clear prop. Add some mixture. And there we go. Our engine is on. Now, let's make sure that we're idling at about 1,000 RPM, thereabouts. And one thing I will say, one downfall, I guess you would say, with this setup, I can't really zoom my head in very close. So what I can do, since the regular keybinds are still on my hat switch and my scroll wheel, I can actually just zoom in like this. So now you can see everything that's showing up on the G1000. Speaking of which, we need to turn on the rest of avionics. So let's do that really quick here. All right, so our avionics switches are right there. And you can see both of them are on. I'm going to go ahead and turn on our taxi lights while I'm at it. And I should probably also get the Pitot Heat on. Usually we do the Pitot Heat when it comes to takeoff, when we're getting on the runway. However, our runway is literally just off to our left, so might as well turn it on from now. We're also going to set up our altitude, and I'm thinking for our cruise on this very short hop should be about 4,000 feet. So we have that set up right there. Our altimeter is currently 29.902. We'll leave that as is. If we wanted to, we could use the ATC, which is conveniently located up here among these icons. I'm going to forego using ATC for this, but you just be aware that you can use ATC to call for taxi clearances, takeoff, whether it's VFR, IFR. You can use it with Unicom, and you can also use it in concert with this, the AI control. You can set your co-pilot, your virtual co-pilot, to help you with checklists or to manage the radio comms or even to control the aircraft directly. So just keep that stuff in mind. Those are all things that are quality of life improvements to help you as far as learning to fly aircraft and so on. You don't have to use them, but they're there if you need them. Now, you'll also notice there's some people there, and they're kind of moving around. The lady, I think that's on that little push truck there, that's your pushback card. So if you call for the pushback, which is the same exact keybind as it was in FSX, which is Shift P, she will come over with the little pushback truck, and she'll literally push you back. We're not going to need that, and hopefully they will get out of my way, because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a sharp left turn here, and we're going to head over to that hold short. Then we're going to go to the right over to the end of runway 32. We'll turn around, and then we're going to take off to the west. We'll fly over Kingston. We'll fly close to Norman Manley International Airport so that I can show that to you. And then we'll get on our way to Boscobel, otherwise known as Ian Fleming International Airport. Okay, I think we pretty much have everything set. We'll do all the other stuff like our controls wipeouts and set our flaps and everything a little bit later. I am going to set my trim right now because I'm notorious for forgetting that. And that is the last thing that I want, is to take off with the wrong trim. So there we go. All right, we'll have that set up right there. And what we'll do right now, we're going to go to the outside view because I want to talk about the state of the default airports for just a moment here. So hang tight, folks. We're going to go to the outside view right now. Okay, so there's a quick view of the exterior and this particular GA airport. Now, the first thing that I noticed with this airport, it's actually missing a few buildings. There is supposed to be a flight school there, the same flight school that my dad learned to fly, and I believe there should also be a small control tower around here somewhere. However, this airport, as I stated, is default. There has not been much added to it. You will notice, however, that the asphalt is perfectly modeled, the traffic lines, and so on and so forth. There's some other anomalies here and there. Remember, this is a beta. And not only can we expect either someone at Asobo or Microsoft to do a quick pass on all these airports, but also, don't forget that they've got the Azure AI, which is a learning computer, and it will actually go through all of the orthophotos and populate buildings based on what it finds. The information here in Jamaica is not as good as, say, the United States or Europe, so that's why some of these buildings are missing. However, there is another option. Third parties. Remember, I said that everybody who purchases Microsoft Flight Simulator can also have access to the SDK. So there's nothing stopping a freeware maker, for example, to go in there and edit this airport, add the missing buildings, and then present it to the community for them to download and install. And remember, you can download and install things from inside the simulator, from that main screen that I showed you before. So there is a way that you can actually update this thing on the go, which I think is a really cool feature. All right, but that's all I wanted to say about that. We're going to head over to the runway really quick, so I'm hoping I'm not going to take any of these people's heads off. Let's get some left rudder here, and we'll get our parking brakes off. And we are going to make our turn. All right, guys, stay safe out there. And let's go to the outside view real quick. Okay, so here we are at hold short, and once again, I'm setting us up at an RPM of about 1,000, and we'll go ahead and get everything else set up that we need to have set up for this. So the first thing that we are going to want to do is we're going to want to get our landing lights on, turn our taxi lights off, have our strobe lights on. We'll also get our fuel pump on. And then we are going to go into the G1000 and set our transponder. We're currently squawking 7,000, so we'll set that to alt. And since I have no plans on actually contacting the ATC for this flight, I'm just going to put it back to the main screen. We've already set our CDI for GPS, so when we engage the autopilot, it should start tracking our course. And we can even set up the PFD to show us any crosswinds. I like to use option 1, which will show us the crosswind component and head or tailwind components separately. And then, of course, you can do the math to add it up. All right, so pretty much everything is set the way we need it. So we're going to go ahead and take the active momentarily. I'm going to zoom this out. I know that when it's completely zoomed out, it might be a little difficult for you to see on the screen. However, remember that I am currently in VR using my little Ghetto IMAX setup here, so I actually see it at the proper dimensions that it would be if I were sitting in the real thing. And if you caught my original video in Seattle, you'll know that I have actually flown in the real thing of this. All right, everything looks good. I am looking to the west and I don't see any traffic flying around. I'm looking to the east and I don't see any traffic there either. I don't see anything immediately available on our TCAS, on our MFD, so we're going to go ahead and take off. I'm going to take the active. And of course, we'll go back to the outside view for that. Okay, here we are at runway 32. So before I reach the end of the threshold here, I'm going to hit the brakes and give it a hard left. Hopefully we won't actually go off the runway as we make our turnaround here. One thing I will say is ground handling on the default settings can be a little bit squirrely, so it may seem in the video that it's a little too sensitive. Just know that you can change all of your control schemes. You can add curves, you can add dead zones, and all of that stuff. So if you find that when you're actually flying this thing, the controls are a little bit sensitive, go to your settings and change all of that stuff, and that will help you to actually get a more realistic feel out of this. For the purpose of this video, I just want to get in there and fly, so I'm not even going to mess with that. I'm just going to leave it as it is. All right, I think we are pretty much set to go, so you know what it's time for, folks. It is brakes down, throttles up, and we'll get our RPMs up. We really should do a magneto check, but I'll forego that because I know that there's no failure set, so we're all right. Get our brakes off, and we're going full speed. Just like the real aircraft, it does pull to the left. That is due to torque. I have my realism settings set to completely realistic, so there is no GTA 5 arcade in this one here. This is exactly how the Cessna actually flies. And we're just about at our rotate speed, so we'll gently pull up. And there we go, look at that. We are airborne and we are climbing. Very nice. Pump the brakes a little bit here just to get the wheels stopping. And we're gonna head on runway heading for right now, and then we'll turn around in a moment here. So let me kind of get us nice and level. What I'll do is I'll actually turn around to the left because I want to show you Norman Manley International Airport, and of course I also want to show you Kingston. But as you know, when you're flying, the first rules are aviate, navigate, communicate. Well, we're not going to be doing the communicate part, but I will be doing some serious aviation right now. You can see Kingston, very well modeled, by the way. Bear in mind, I haven't been to Jamaica since the very late 80s, so I have no idea if this is accurate. I have seen pictures because I still have family that lives down there, and I think it's actually a pretty good approximation if it's not 100% accurate. Okay, let's get our flaps up, because our nose heaviness is kind of non-existent here. You can see the sun just about to set. It's also behind the clouds there, so we're doing pretty good. And I am actually going to turn us a little to the left and trim us down somewhat, so that way we can gain some more airspeed. In fact, let's go to the outside view so that way we can take a look around. Okay, so you got a pretty good look at Port Royal, which is on the end of that peninsula there, as well as Norman Manley International Airport, which is directly in front of us. Now, please note that Norman Manley International is another default airport, but from what I have seen of this, they actually did a pretty good job representing what's there in real life. So I cannot complain with that at all. All right, we're going to turn back towards Kingston here. You can see the port, the harbor, and of course Tinson Pen, where we just took off from. We're going to try and intercept our little GPS line, and we'll go ahead and activate our autopilot in preparation to fly over the mountains and head towards Boscobel here. So you can see us on the map there. And I'm still going full throttle because we're only at 1,900 feet right now. We're going to need to get all the way up to 4,000 though, so let's level out a bit, and we'll activate our autopilot. We'll wait for the aircraft to stabilize itself a little bit here, and we'll get our vertical speed on, so that way we don't lose too much airspeed. We'll set ourselves up for about 400 feet per minute climb. So there we go. You can see we are out of the flap extension zone. We're just about 89 knots and looking pretty good. And now we can relax a little bit. So let me go ahead and turn off our landing lights, and I'll also turn off our fuel pump. Now, there are a couple of things that I do want to mention. You've probably heard that they modeled all the air mass. So pretty much the winds from sea level all the way up as high as winds will go. Everything is modeled in this thing. That means if you're flying over the ocean, for example, your flight will be pretty much smooth as glass. If you're flying over mountains, on the other hand, you do have updrafts, downdrafts. You have thermals, depending on, the humidity or the time of day and so on and so forth. All of that stuff will throw your plane around. And let me just tell you, especially on real world settings, the weather can get pretty brutal. It will toss you all over the place. It doesn't matter if you're in a Cessna or if you are in an actual 747 or something like that. All right, I'm engaging our nav hold really quick here. So it is going to swing us out to the right as it works its way back to the magenta line. I'll zoom us in just a touch here. So you can see it's already doing its thing. I set us up on a direct GPS course, so pretty much easy mode. But if I wanted to, I could have put all the various waypoints in, and if I were in an airliner, which you'll more than likely never see me fly on this channel, I could, in theory, add all of the SIDS and stars that I need for this particular route. I don't believe there's any SIDS or stars for the route that I'm doing from Tinson Pen to Boscobel, but you know what I mean. If I were flying from international airport to international airport, it is certainly a thing. They thought of that. It's all in there. All right, but we are leaving Kingston right now, so I'm going to go back to the outside view, and one thing I want you to take note of is how this aircraft bumps around the closer it gets to these hills. All right, so we are almost at our cruise altitude of 4,000 feet. We're just over 3,800, and we should get there shortly. One thing you may have noticed outside is there is an awful lot of humidity here. It's not exactly rain, but it's very humid. You got to figure, we're on a tropical island. These kinds of things happen. But that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about here. That's part of the air mass modeling in this flight sim. They do take into consideration temperature and humidity and stuff like that. And I'll be honest with you, as much as I love X-Plane's blade element theory, X-Plane does not hold a candle to what's being done here to actual weather and air mass modeling. And I think this is the thing that will separate Microsoft Flight Simulator from X-Plane. And don't get me wrong, I'm not calling for the death of X-Plane. I still intend to fly X-Plane, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to be able to bring to the table later on down the road. However, I'm just acknowledging things for what they are, and this is pretty good. This is really good. So kudos to Asobo and Microsoft for putting this all together, because this is the missing link, if you will, to flight simming. Of course, everything looks gorgeous. And that's where a lot of the hype is coming from, is just how beautiful this looks. It's almost sunset, and this is pretty much what Jamaica would look like. You've got the hills off in the distance, and especially with how steamy it is right now, yeah, this is exactly what I would expect to see if I were really flying around in Jamaica. Although I didn't call for IFR flying, so we're going to see if we can avoid as many of these clouds as possible. Now, there is one thing that I do want to make mention of really quickly here, because I've seen it on a number of other videos from my compatriots, my fellow YouTubers, and I know that people have been calling them out for it, and I think it's a little unfounded. Right now, the performance that I'm getting in this thing, if I were to lift up the Oculus Rift, I'm pretty stable around 30 frames per second. Bear in mind, my computer is set up to run a 4K screen. Now, that in and of itself doesn't really mean much to you, but you need to remember these things. I'm also recording. Ideally, what we should be doing as YouTubers, we should have a second computer that will allow us to record what's going on the first computer. But right now, the resources are being split. So I've got my graphics card and my CPU working overtime to give me the stunning visuals and performance that I'm getting in this thing right now, with the Oculus Rift on my head, running what is essentially a virtual IMAX screen all around me here. And I'm also splitting those resources to actually have DxTory record what you're seeing right now. So the end result of the video, after I'm finished editing everything, I'm probably going to bounce it down to like 1440p or maybe even 1080p. The reason why I do that is I want to preserve the quality, but I'm sure there are those of you who are eagle-eyed that may notice some slight stuttering as a result of that whole conversion process. I want you to know that in the sim, there are no stutters. If I were not recording, I could easily get upwards of 60 frames per second. And you also need to understand that the way that I have my settings, pretty much everything is on high end, which is like the notch just below ultra. If I put it to ultra, yes, I do lose a good bit of FPS, especially with all these clouds all over the place. However, I found that the high-end settings, the notch just below ultra, is the place that you want to have it, especially if your computer can handle it. Now, once we actually get full VR implementation, I'm pretty sure that might change. But I will tell you this. I've tried this thing on lower graphics settings, and it really doesn't look bad. Unless you're going to put it to the very lowest settings, it still looks pretty dang good. So again, I got to give Microsoft and Asobo props on that one. They actually were able to pull off a level of stability and performance that I really haven't seen in many other sims, except, of course, X-Plane Beta 11.50 with Vulkan turned on. And that also brings to mind another point. This sim does not have Vulkan. It's currently running on DX11. Eventually, they do plan on updating to DX12. That's not in the cards for the very immediate future, but it's something that's down the road that they're looking at. They do not have any immediate plans to incorporate Vulkan, but think about it. It's Microsoft. Of course they're going to stay with DX11 and then DX12. That just makes sense. And it doesn't matter really, because all of your graphics cards can use it. So keep that in mind as well. All right, let's go to the outside view. We'll do a little bit of cinematics here, and then we'll pretty much be close to top of descent, and we'll start bringing her into Boscobel. Okay, so we are back in the cockpit, and it is definitely getting cloudy around here. We are getting kind of close to Boscobel. You can see we've got roughly about 4 minutes at this speed till we overfly a Boscobel, and we're about 7 miles out. So we're going to need to come down pretty quickly here. So what I'll do is I'm going to bring us all the way down to about 1,000 feet. And let me just adjust that. There we go. We have it currently set for 1,000. So we're going to activate our vertical speed, and we are also going to lower our nose. I want a pretty sprightly descent, so I'm thinking about 600 feet per minute descent should be good. You can see it right there. I'll zoom in a little further for you. Now we are going to pick up speed, so I'm going to pull the throttle back. One thing I did not do in this flight was I did not lean the mixture. I figure we're only going up to 4,000 and we're really not traveling that far, so it's probably not even necessary at the moment. But my plan is we are going to overfly Boscobel, and then we'll come in, we'll do like an extended downwind leg, and then we'll come in over the water and land to the west on runway 27. Let me see if I can pop my head over the dashboard here. Okay, we can see the river up ahead, and the river is just to the east of Boscobel. We cannot see Boscobel itself because there's a hill in the way with some nifty little trees on top. But that having been said, I think we should have no problems because, well, we can see it on the map, so we know where we're going. I'm going to zoom in our map here, so let me do that really quick. Actually, let me zoom in the cockpit so that you can see it a little bit easier. And that is the one thing that I will say is a little bit of a problem with my IMAX setup here, my virtual IMAX setup, is the fact that with the cockpit moving all over the place, it's difficult for me to hit just the right spot with the mouse to actually zoom us in properly. But I was able to pull it off at least as well as I would like right now. And we're still coming down rather quickly, so I'm going to drop our throttle even more. If we look outside, we should start to see Boscobel Airport. So let me go outside and do that. And I keep calling it Boscobel because that's what I'm used to it being called when I was a kid. But remember, it is actually called Ian Fleming International Airport, named after the author of James Bond, who had a home here not far away from Boscobel. It is modeled, by the way. The home was called GoldenEye. Okay, so we are about to overfly Ian Fleming International Airport, aka Boscobel. You can see the little neighborhood that exists just to the south of the airport, and right there you can see the runway. That is runway 9. That was the one I was talking about in my little intro here. That's the hill. That's the drop-off, and I guess there's now houses there. I don't recall there being houses there when I was a kid, but that was a very long time ago. And you can even see some of the hotels, and of course GoldenEye is down there also. But yeah, those trees though, whoo, yeah, those are tall. Those are pretty tall. Okay, we're still coming down. We are currently at 1590, and I am still pulling the power back a little bit. Let's go ahead and get our landing lights on, and we should also have our fuel pump back on, so we'll do that. You may notice I don't do everything by the books. I've never claimed to be a real-life pilot. I've got like a handful of hours in a Cessna just like this. That's about it. I don't know if I will ever get my private pilot's license. Right now I just can't afford it, but With that being said, that's exactly why programs like this exist. Microsoft Flight Simulator, DCS, X-Plane, Aerofly FS2, Prepared version 4 and 5, those all exist to, I guess, help us live out those dreams, if you will. But bear in mind that even though Microsoft has said no pilot will be left behind, one thing I do want to point out, this sim will cater to everybody. So the 12-year-old kid that's really getting into aviation, it will help them out. The casual flyer who, just wants to hop up there to get the immersion or the impression of flight, it will help them out. And also the seasoned veteran pilot who wants to stay current on his or her procedures, it's going to help them out as well. And it's all a beautiful thing. I cannot fault Microsoft for deciding to do this course of action. It makes sense. You appeal to the widest audiences and you actually make it so that people can, quote unquote, choose their difficulty, which kind of goes back to that whole thing that you've been seeing about the GTA 5 arcade-ish feel to this thing. Rest assured, people, if you want to set up your sim as GTA 5, that's fine. That's entirely fine. It is up to you to do what you want to do. It's your flight sim. If you want to be like me and set everything completely realistic, so you've got to be on your A game trying to bring this bird in, that is also completely fine. You can do this however you want. It is your flight simulator, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And don't let anyone dissuade you or tell you that this sim is just simply a game because of the fact that it caters to all of the audiences. All right, that is really all I have to say about that. So enough already with the GTA 5 business. You can actually fly this thing like a professional pilot would if you choose to call yourself one. So quit hating, please. That's all I ask. All right, I've eaten up enough time. We are getting ready to land. So we're just about 500 feet and about 70 knots, which is right where I want it to be. We are on base leg. This is a Unicom airport, so really I should be on the radio right now announcing that 6 Yankee Alpha Golf Bravo is on base for final runway 27. But let's go to the outside view really quick. Okay, so we are just about at 500 feet, and Boscobel is off to that side. We can't see it right now because there are trees in the way, so we'll have to rely on our trusty GPS to help bring us in. Once we get to the coast, we're going to make that sharp right turn, and hopefully we should just about see where we need to be. So we're going to bring it down here. This is going to be an interesting approach because if we undershoot, we're ending up in the Caribbean Sea. And if we overshoot, well, those trees will take care of us in short order. All right, let me start a nice, easy turn here as I pull the power back. We're at about 350 feet right now. In typical BelGeode fashion, just before we touch down, I'll go to the outside view. And I'll try not to bounce this time. All right, here we go. Ready for our turn to final. We're just about on speed. We're looking pretty good. We're at 200 feet and we'll level out. All right. This should do it. We do have a slight bit of a crosswind here, so I'll have to compensate for that by crabbing a little to the right. But I would say we look like we are on target. Look at how tall those trees are, too. Woo! Oh, baby. All right, let's go to the outside view for this landing. All right, and we made it. Woohoo! Okay, so that is my first official landing in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And I say official because it's finally on YouTube, even though I've done hundreds of landings into this airport. All right, let's get our brakes back off, and we're going to bust a UE here and get ourselves in. We'll get the landing lights off. We'll put the taxi lights on. We'll get the strobes off, fuel pump off, and of course our pitot heat. We'll go ahead and turn that off as well. All right. And let's see if I can make this U-turn. Look at that. There's a little bus here waiting for us. And there's the gas man over there. We won't be needing his services today. All right. So all we need to do now is we need to find our parking spot. So we're going to hop in here. Okay, and I want to say that we need to turn left. So yeah, we'll do that. There's an awful lot of cars here. All these default cars are in the way. And actually, I think that pickup truck is in my parking spot. So we're going to need to find a different spot here. I'm going to try not to hit that hangar while I'm at it. Did I miss it? I did. Okay, you guys are bothering me. Why are you in my spot? Seriously, who the heck ordered the bus? I certainly didn't. There's not enough people here to put on a bus. What the heck is going on? All right. Craziness, I tell you. There's always something coming into Boscobel. Sheesh. Okay. Let's see if we can find a decent parking spot. Now, these parking spots here are kind of weird. You have to kind of make I guess, a hook. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hook us right about here. And we'll hit the parking spot just like that. We'll put our parking brakes on, and we will consider this done. So taxi lights off, and you know what? We'll turn the beacon off because we're getting ready to turn the engine off as well. Okay, so folks, welcome to Ian Fleming International Airport in Boscobel, just east of Ocho Rios in the tropical island of Jamaica. And does anyone want to take any bets as to whether or not that bus is going to come back over here and clip my tailplane? I don't even want to look into the outside view to see if that happens. I think he missed us though, so we're good. We're absolutely good. All right, so just to remind you, this has been a preview video of Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is not intended as a full review or anything, but part of the reason why I chose this route is, of course, the nostalgia, and I want you to see what default airports look like. This airport looks considerably better than Tinson Pen did. In fact, let's go to the outside view really quick before I sign off, and I will show you a little look around the airport. So there you have it, folks. That is what a default airport looks like, a little GA airport. Now, we really didn't get a chance to see Norman Manley up close, and I'm sure you probably want to see other areas, so tell you what you do. In the comments, since I know this particular video is probably going to get more views than any other video that I will post about Microsoft Flight Simulator in the next few days, go ahead and comment what you would like to see, whether it's your home airport or if you want me to show you a particular portion of the sim, maybe one of the control settings or how to do something, and I'll see what I can come up with. I know there's an awful lot of information that's coming out right now and over the next few days, so what I'm going to try to do is not repeat what I know that other YouTubers have done, because honestly, I want to give them some of this glory as well. There's some amazing channels out there, people that were with me in Seattle, and you owe it to yourself to watch their videos as well. All right, but that will just about do it for me. So I'm going to go ahead and turn everything off here, and we'll start with our mixture knob. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, let me turn off my avionics so that way I don't drain my battery. And then we'll hit the mixture knob. And there we go. Just like that. we are done. So this is what you see if you have put in a flight plan and you finally get to your destination safely. It will give you a record of your flight, and it will also post this in your logbook forever and forever. All right, but that will do it for me, folks. Thank you, as always, for watching my preview of Microsoft Flight Simulator. This has been BelGeode, and of course, I've been flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator. You're going to be seeing more videos coming soon, both previews, and then after August the 16th, I will do an official review video for Microsoft Flight Simulator in its release state. If you enjoy what you've seen, please feel free to give me a like. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. That way you'll get notifications when I put up any video, regardless of whether or not it's Microsoft Flight Simulator related or X-Plane or DCS or any of the other flight sims that I use. If you have pre-ordered the simulator, this will give you an idea of what to expect. And like I said, feel free to comment below if there's something in particular that you would like to see. I can't guarantee to accommodate every single request, but I will try my best to get the most videos up over the next few days, so that will at least show you the things that you would be interested in seeing. But for now, my point to this video was just to show you that you can use trackIR in a VR headset. And even though it's not true VR, it's not true 3D, it still works. And it looks pretty dang good. All right, folks, that'll do it for me. So thank you as always for watching, and I will catch you soon. Ciao.